Hello, everybody. It's Brenda Wood again, and today I'm here with Jessica. And Jessica's got a very interesting story because she has not only done police work, she's also been a correctional officer. So I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about her background, and then we'll get into some questions, and hopefully you can get some very good information out of this. So, Jessica, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, your education, and things like that?
Background, well, I'll start off. I did 10 years in the Army as an intelligence analyst. When I got out, I went into corrections with Core Civic, then CCA. I did about 2.5 years total there, and then I did a break in between. In the break, I was a officer on the streets for about a year and a half, give or take, and then came back to Core Civic, did a year, and left. And then now I'm a civilian cop on post.
And that's an interesting thing in itself. Usually, most forts have military policemen.
They do. I thought so too, but they also have civilian cops, the Department of the Army Civilian Police. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about police work first.
All right.
What's your favorite thing about it?
Interacting with the public. I love people, so just making a difference is what my goal is.
What is the worst thing you've seen as a police officer?
I think the worst thing I've seen is nothing as bad as what you see on the TVs, but I've come across a few instances where children were not neglected, but there was a toddler walking on the street at like 3 or 4 in the morning. So the cops picked him up and took him to the
Where they hold over.
Yeah, I forget the name of the place, but yeah, just parents not taking care of the children. That's one of the worst things I've seen.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
No.
Can't even imagine. I've heard a lot of police officers say car accidents and
Never
abuse.
encountered any car accidents that were bad like that. Just a car accident with a pregnant lady, but they ended up all right.
So you've had a pretty successful, non-eventful police career.
I have. And then once I left Overland Park, that's when it all went downhill. In my area, there was a shooting. A teenager got killed in an apartment complex. There was that. And then actually, while I was there was a guy that was wanted for murder out of Columbia, Missouri, I think. What was his name? I forget his name. But he lived in the apartment complex in my area, so I worked with the FBI to go up and see if he was there. I didn't work with him, I just helped him. But and after I left, there was a call about shots being fired in that area. So one of the officers responded, and it ended up being that guy. So he started shooting at the officers, and they shot and ended the threat and killed him.
Well, sometimes that does happen.
It does.
But it happened after you left.
It does.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
So you said FBI, so let's talk about that for a little bit. You went on and became a Core Civic or CCA correctional officer.
Yes.
And talk to me about that.
So I initially applied with Core Civic CCA back in August 2015, and I started out down in Nashville, Tennessee at the Metro Davidson facility. I worked nights, so I wasn't able to see how the facility was ran during the day, and what kind of. I worked in SEG. Females were allowed to work in SEG at that time, so I didn't really have any interaction with the inmates, but I never had any issues with them. If that makes any sense.
Sure.
Being respectful towards them, and they respected me back. And from there, I moved up to Leavenworth because my husband deployed. Different story. So I came up to Leavenworth facility January 2016. Went on days, worked up in the female bubble for like 6 months, and then they put me in the workers' pod. But when I was there the first time, so I left January 2017, so I was there for a year or so. I didn't really see any issues because I wasn't that I was aware of. Maybe I was just focusing on my work and everything like that. But when I came there the second time, which was July or June 2018, and I worked there. I left October 2019. It just went downhill. Like the inmates' needs, they weren't being met. The unit team, we were very short staffed, so unit team was being put into the pods to work or taken somewhere else. So just the lack of support with the inmates and the officers, we've had to take on their responsibility and get stuff done. That's what it seemed like. It was just ridiculous.
So Core Civic is not only short-staffed, they're not meeting the needs of not just their employees, but the inmates too.
No. Like request forms, you'd all have to put those in if you were missing a pair of pants or if you needed indigent items or whatever, or make a phone call to an attorney or whatever, just anything that wasn't out of the normal, if you couldn't do it in the pod.
Right.
So a lot of requests weren't being met because the unit team wasn't there to meet those needs, so y'all would be, I don't know, out of sanitary items. And that would cause a big issue because it's like the little stuff that you need that we have out here in the real world that, I don't know.
It's needed
It
there,
is
and
needed,
you're relying on somebody else.
And it just makes your life a living hell if you don't get that stuff. You're like, oh, what am I going to do now? I need a pad for my issue, and I have none. There was a time that there was a weekend that, all the female cycles, they go, they're all the same. So everyone needed pads, and there was no pads. No one had the keys to the warehouse to get it, and there were just none. So it was just a mess.
Oh, I bet.
Trying to find stuff for the women down there. It's ridiculous. And then
Yeah, no, I was just going to say they should be better prepared for situations like that, especially on the weekends when nobody, or holidays.
When unit team's not there, or they're being pulled somewhere else and no one knows where anything is.
Talk to me about medical.
Oh, medical. Now, medical. That's a touchy subject. Inmates the individuals staying there would put requests in for medical needs, whether it be an earache, a toothache, just something that's bothering them, or other serious issues. There would be a lapse in time where medical staff weren't getting to these inmates in a timely manner, so their issues would get worse. And then they act like they wouldn't care, like they come down for sick call and just put off.
What was it like to get them from the pod to medical, and the whole process of what it took for an inmate to get treated? Well, like, they can't, in a holding facility, they can't transfer themselves to medical.
No, okay, so we'd have to pat you all down when you come out of the pod, escort y'all up to medical, and the process, even to be seen for a serious issue, you'd have to put in a sick call. You'd be seen the next day, maybe if the nurses were there, if they get you in time. Or even if they come collected your sick calls and you even be put on the list, because that was another issue. They would put in their sick calls in the medical form. There was like 2 or 3 times the nurses wouldn't even come down to get the sick calls. So they weren't on the list for that following day. It would just cause another issue, and they'd have to put in another one, and it's...
And the wait time?
The wait time, yeah. So you'd have to do the sick call. They'd have to make sure it's a legitimate issue, and then before you can even see the doctor for that. But even to see the doctor, it'd be like a few weeks.
I've heard reference to people calling the doctors Doc in the Box.
Oh yeah.
So can you explain what that's about?
The Doc in the Box is where he was a psychiatrist, wasn't he? Yeah, he was a psychiatrist. He wasn't even there. So you'd have to bring the inmate in and put him in the room, and there'd be like a TV that they're talking to, and he'd be talking back. And it wasn't even the person-on-person contact that most people need. Just a person on screen that you're talking to.
So it's a virtual
yeah.
Yes.
And we weren't allowed to sit in there, but I'm pretty sure it didn't really help any from...
What was pill call like, and meds and that type of thing?
Pill call? Pill call is fun. The nurses would come down for pill call with their carts, and sometimes they had the wrong cart. That happened a few times as well. And we yell pill call throughout the cell or the pod, individuals would come down and get their pills. And I never really had any issues, but for pill call, we have to, as they take the pills, look at your tongue inside the mouth and everything like that. And, it would take a while, probably about an hour, hour and a half for each pod, if everyone came down who needed pills. But there were a few times where the nurses would be like at night. Was it at night or was it in the morning? No, it was probably on the weekend in the morning where pill call was supposed to come at like 8:30 or 9 or so. They didn't get to it until like the afternoon. But even, you know, the people who need their meds in the morning, they didn't get them until that afternoon, and there was nothing that we could do. Like, we would call up, they'd be like, hey, this person needs their meds, and they're like, oh, we can't do nothing about it, we're short-staffed or whatever, we got to take care of these people first. I'm like, okay, well, they wouldn't even listen to us.
And when you're doing pill call, you're the only officer.
Oh, yeah.
So there's no room.
That's true.
So what happens with that? When you're tied up with pill call, what happens in the pods?
We don't know what happens in the pods. That's why I think unit team was supposed to be there for pill call, and they would help out, but sometimes that didn't happen. So there could be an issue in another pod we wouldn't know about, and then just...
And the inmates knew this, so they would plan their shenanigans around that or whatever might go on.
They may have.
What do you see with some of the people that you dealt with? Do you believe in second chances? Do you believe that sometimes the system is fair, or maybe it's not fair? What's your take on some of the stuff that you saw?
I believe that there were some individuals in there that deserve a second chance. They may have been in the wrong place at the wrong time, maybe going through some life issues that maybe they didn't want to do this, but they had to in order to support the family or whatever. Not speaking of your case, but yeah, I think especially, oh, and I have a bachelor's in criminal justice, but I can't remember, like, most of it. It's been a year.
That's all right.
But, like, for second chances, yes, I believe everyone deserves one. And most people, not everyone, but most people there, they seem like they wanted to give it a second chance. I never...
You guys weren't familiar with
No, we didn't know what their cases were, but we just dealt with the individual, not even knowing them for what they did. But most of them seemed decent, respectful, educated.
So you saw a variety. You saw people from all walks of life, pretty much.
Yeah.
And when you say second chances, what do you think it's like on the outside for them when they get out? And especially as a police officer, because you might come in contact with them again. Yes.
It's difficult for them. Because I see stories, I hear stories about people who got out of jail who are felons or have that record on their paperwork. It's hard for them to find jobs because no one wants to hire them because they think that, oh, they're going to rob me or do something or whatever.
Be dishonest.
Yeah. Or places to live if they don't have family. And I get it, that's where the probation or parole officer, whatever they're called nowadays, sorry, I'm sounding stupid, but...
It's okay, I think it's probation for feds.
Is it probation?
And parole for state,
okay.
So it's both.
It's one of those. That is their job to help them find places to live. And I also, even before y'all get out, when you know you're getting out, the unit team, they're supposed to help you get in these, like, give you information of where to live, find jobs. They're supposed to start that process in there. I don't know if it ever has happened, but it
probably
does.
not if they can't even come to
Very
that
true.
area because they're short-staffed or being pulled.
Yes, and that's when I worked at the Metro Davidson facility. They have classes for individuals getting out, such as drug classes, kind of like alcohol anonymous, or how to infiltrate yourself back into the real world, with how to find jobs and everything like that, which this facility didn't up here in Leavenworth. But I think that's one of the necessary steps in order to help you all get out.
Yes,
to help.
It is a very important step.
Yeah, and
especially for those that don't have support.
Exactly, and even afterwards.
Yes.
I don't know the caseload of the parole or probation officers, but checking on them, even if you don't need to, like, you you have a job yet? Do you need some place to live? I can help you more or whatever, but I don't know how.
Did you see a lot of repeat offenders coming through?
Oh, yeah. Even when I was there the first time and I left, and they apparently left, now they came back for, I don't know. There was a few of you know, then they came back.
Well, that's, I think it does happen, or they're on probation or parole, and they tend to commit another crime,
Yeah,
so they
that's all they
go
know is
back.
they don't have jobs.
That's right.
So they got to find a living some way or another, and I don't support that lifestyle, but then I get it because that's all they know how to do, and that's all they can do.
Right. But they do need to change. I don't support it either. I completely,
No, yeah.
completely agree with that.
But like it, in my personal opinion, depends on the person as well.
That's true. It does, and their mentality.
Yes. But they think they can do it, then they will do it.
Right.
They'll make.
What would you tell the public to educate them about the whole incarceration system, the policing? You know, what is it you would want them to know that they could understand about the process
of being incarcerated?
And just the whole, just from a cop that might arrest them to being incarcerated to being let out, just kind of the whole process. What is something you could tell them about that? It's good or bad, or whatever your opinion is on that.
The bad part is no one deserves to be put through all that. They don't. It's checking people in the jail. I had a guy who I picked up drunk, trying to break into cars. He was on all sorts of drugs. He soiled himself, and I just, like, why would you? He was a young kid. Why would you put yourself through that? And just, we picked up a guy. He was a cocaine dealer. Had kids. That's, I guess, what he grew up on. That's what his family did. He was very remorseful about what he did. He knew he wasn't going to see his daughter for a long period of time because of what he does. So it's just, one thing you got to learn is most of these people have families. They do care about their kids. They care about their wives, their husbands. It just, you need to be respectful of people. We're all human beings.
That's a very good statement. Very true.
Just.
Now, I do believe there's some people that should never get out.
Goodness,
I completely agree with that. But
no.
I do feel that our system is unfair because it treats everybody the same, regardless of the crime.
That's very true.
And I think that needs to change.
It does. There's a few people, such as yourself, who you're in there for nothing.
Well, I met Jessica while I was incarcerated at CCA, so it's a very honor to be able to sit with her and to get her opinion and to be welcome in her home and not be treated like I was this person that didn't deserve a second chance. So I'm very thankful of that and appreciate that. So, and I was always treated with respect by her. But at the same time, I also saw what a CO goes through and in their daily walk and how people treated them and what they had to put up with from others. Not just inmates, their superiors and how they were treated by their own employers. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Oh, since we were very short-staffed, we had mandates we had to do, and even though we were working 12-hour shifts, 4 days every week, 3 days off, 3 days here, and whatever, we'd have very little time with our families because the shifts were from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So spending time with your family, and of course on the weekdays your kids have school or whatever, so there's no time you can spend with them. It's just mentally exhausting. It's not a hard job, but what they put you through, expecting you to do everything and making you work 2 mandates a month. Yeah, it doesn't seem like that much, but it is when you don't have enough time off.
And they didn't give you the time off for doctor's appointments and other things. You had to make that on your day off, but you would also get called in on your day off.
There was many times where they would call us in the morning and be like, hey, do you want to work? Nope. Not today.
And you would get that held against you.
Yeah, and even if not showing up your mandates, if you have something else going on before they did the schedule, you're going to get in trouble for that. And now I heard that they're making the employees do 6 mandates a month.
Oh my goodness, that's
So
a lot. It's 1.5 a week.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's just.
So if they have the turnover, obviously they have turnover if they're mandating.
Oh yeah.
What's the training like? I mean, are you guys trained to even really deal with anything?
I hope so. Our training was 5 weeks, and even so, we had a lot of people quit, especially after do the OJT.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want to be in there.
Right.
They saw how unsafe it was. And when I was there the second time, it was a lot of stabbings.
Yeah.
That were swept under the rug.
Yeah. I wonder why they do that. Can you explain it?
Oh, that's a good question. To eliminate any investigations from the outside police force, because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to call them, the
Right.
outside police investigators come investigate why the stabbing happened. Never had that until after the female warden left. The Thomas, I think that's what her name is.
So now they have that.
Yep. Now they're investigating all the stabbings, the staff assaults, or everything that's happening. So it's a plus, but still, it's not good that it's happening.
No, it's not. So another thing I want to talk to you about is you're one officer. You've got 2 pods on the female side, and you could have up to 80 women per pod, and you have 1 of you and a bubble officer.
Yep. Well,
And I was going to say sometimes they that's where I was getting at. So now if you don't have a bubble officer, you're being watched from the main bubble who is also watching the entire facility.
Yep.
So they may or may not see something that needs attention right now, or a fight, or somebody falls because they got hurt, and it could be horrible on the time that somebody gets there to react for that problem. So without a bubble officer, it's even worse.
It is.
And what happens, let's say, I know the bubble officer would open the cells for you to come in and do your cell inspections.
Yeah.
And open the doors for you to get out of the pod. So what happens if you're stuck in a cell doing an inspection and then something breaks out and the bubble officer's not paying attention to you?
Then you're basically screwed, especially if there is no bubble officer. And the job of the bubble officer is, of course, to watch you and watch the inmates and
call you if there's a problem.
Yeah. So if there's one lazy bubble officer is not doing anything, you're stuck in the cell, there's something happening over here, she's more focused on that, not letting you out of the cell, there's nothing you can really do. And as for not having a bubble officer, we would communicate, hey, to Unit 4, I'm going in here, let me out when I need it. Sometimes they get busy, something else going on, or they would forget that you're in there. You're like, who's this? I'm not letting you out. Where's your officer? I am the officer. Okay. So there's that. And then also opening the doors, especially after count, there was times when I would be up in Unit 4, I worked up there too, and all the bubbles were closed down except for one of the center court. We'd have to open up South End, females, everyone, it seemed like.
So the inmates were in there for a long time before even though count has cleared.
Yes.
Talk to me about count. A lot of people don't understand when you go to prison or any type of incarceration, they have to do a count process to make sure that the right number of inmates are there and in their right location. And this happens several times a day. But for some reason, CCA has a hard time doing it in a timely manner. And sometimes these people were sitting in their cells, locked down for up to 2 to 4 hours sometimes because they had to recount. Where the prison systems get it done in 10, 15 minutes. Can you talk to me about that?
Yes. Count was a very hard thing to do apparently at CCA. I don't understand why, but you'd have to count a living, breathing body. I know it upset a lot of people if you knock on the door, make sure you're there, because there were sometimes the blankets would be piled up and we didn't know where they were. But you go room to room, count the person. They're supposed to be standing there with their IDs. A lot of people didn't do that. I know I didn't necessarily do that because I knew where my people were, and
right. And
I
never had any of the people.
Yeah. So there was that. Most of the time, like if they were medical would mess up their count, and then you'd have to recount medical and recount the pod. Or there was one time where it wasn't on my shift, thank goodness. There was an inmate who was out of the facility. I think he got released, but he was still on our papers. So they were trying for hours to figure out what his count. Yes. Ended up he was released earlier that day. Unit team, no one did anything with the paperwork and the computer to fix that, so they were locked down for a long time trying to figure out where this guy
And then
was.
they get out, and it's time to count again.
Yes.
So their counts were 4 times during the day and then during the middle of the night. So if you had a long count, you're getting out for maybe an hour to make phone calls. Sometimes they'd eat in their cells. You maybe sometimes had 10 minutes before the next count, and they would make you recount, even though they just counted and cleared count. And sometimes they would forget to clear count. They would forget to make the announcement even though the count had been cleared. So inmates have a lot of stress with that, and so do the guards, because the inmates are on you. Hey, what's going on? Why isn't count clearing? And
especially if it's not your
that.
pod,
Yes.
We don't know.
Yes.
And that sucks.
I had heard a story that one of the female officers had an affair with one of the men that was incarcerated. Could that, I mean, it evidently did happen. She got fired for it, but how easy could that happen there?
It could happen, especially on night shift. That's what I heard. A lot of stuff that's happened. There was a few females apparently that had relations with men in the pods. But it could happen.
Now, were you there when the Black case happened and the recording of the phone calls?
Yes.
And the marshals came in and kicked in some doors. And when you say that, kicking in doors means they come in and basically raid your cell and get the information out. The Black case is about a prosecutor here in Kansas for the feds that listened to attorney phone calls, and how she got caught was she basically tried to blackmail another attorney to, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm not sure exactly how this went, just stories that I've heard, was you need to back off of this case. And then when she showed why, she realized that this was recorded, and this attorney went and told it to her boss, which turned into a big investigation, and people have been set free because it is a violation of their right to have their client attorney privilege violated. And there was video recordings, not only of the phones, which they record that, they try to catch you in something else, trying to hang yourself for admitting something, but there was also video recordings in the attorney rooms, in the client room.
I know there's cameras, but there shouldn't have been any like video recording. The only cameras in there for the safety, to make sure that.
And I completely get that. I completely get that.
Yeah, but the audio.
Right, but it was gone. And once this happened, that even came out of the rooms because they could video what was on the screen of a computer when the attorneys come in, or paperwork or things like that. And maybe even reading lips.
Yeah.
So, but it turns out that there's this big investigation going on. I think in January there's a big hearing to see exactly what's going to happen. But there's also was a big drug thing that happened there. And one of the COs got involved and actually got arrested. And
it was the first time I was there.
Yes, yes. Can you talk a little bit about that?
The officer that was bringing the drugs, I would have never expected it of him, because he was very quiet, very respectful of everyone, even the inmates and everything. He never had any issues that I was aware of, and that should have been one of the observations. But he was bringing in drugs to the inmates and got money from it in order to support his daughter. And there was a raid, and he got caught. I guess they were investigating it for a while. I never knew anything about it until that day. He got fired. And that's all I know of it.
And I don't know if they put him in there or somewhere else, because
I think somewhere else.
Yeah, because he worked there. He knew the ins and outs. I also was a witness to girls wearing bobby pins and McDonald's wrappers, where some of the female COs had brought in stuff.
Oh.
Yes, that was not you.
Oh.
It was not you. But I do, I've witnessed that, which are big no-nos, and then all of a sudden that cop is gone. And then one of the bosses was in on that. I think it was Lieutenant West, a female.
Oh, yeah, down in, that was the same area she worked in. Yeah.
So it wasn't just one level.
Yeah.
It was multiple levels that people infiltrate with drugs to get into the prison systems. And it's very unfortunate, but it does go on.
Yeah.
And these people, the money comes from the families on the outside, and it does happen. So what is it that made you get out of that field and back into police work?
Well, I miss being on the streets, but I couldn't. Then I was a lieutenant for a very short time, thinking I could help change some of the things, but even from the upper leadership, they weren't helping. And you can't do everything by yourself. And so went back down as an officer. It got worse. You felt unsafe working in there. No one wanted to do their job. All they were there was to be there to make money and not do anything. So that's the reason why I got out. It was not going anywhere.
And it's
Not gonna
probably
change.
gotten worse.
It has gotten
Yes.
worse. More drugs and weapons being found. So now we're
In a place that's supposed to be high security for
Oh, yeah.
everybody. Yes.
And then they were smoking K2 the last few months I was there, and it was a pain coming into work. You would get severe headaches.
Oh yeah.
I think I went through a withdrawal when I left there.
Just for breathing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was ridiculous.
Well, Jessica, I really appreciate your time today and your opinion and your viewpoints on that stuff, and I really appreciate you letting me into your home.
Of course.
And if anybody needs to get in touch with me, go to thingsbybren.com or Facebook, LinkedIn. It's all there. View the videos on YouTube as well. And if you want to talk about incarceration or how to get help when you get out, please give me a holler. I'll be happy to talk to you about it and see if I can help. So thank you guys for watching, and thank you, Jessica.
You're welcome.